Hey everyone, Andrew Shulman here with the last part in the Performance Kit tutorial series. In the first couple of parts we actually created all of the content, so now it's just a matter of making any last minute mixing changes and then going ahead and actually playing the kit that we have created. So the first thing I want to do is just show you how to quickly change the volume of your different sounds. Then after that I'm going to talk about some basic effects that I use, and finally I'll move on to some performance technique tips. So let's go ahead and take a look at volume adjustment. This is pretty simple, but I want to do a quick recap because you'll be doing this quite a bit. There's a couple different ways to actually change the volume. You can go ahead and do shift sampling and use the mixer. If you don't want to do that, and if you want to do it for several sounds at one time, say I want to adjust all of the levels of the lead up here. First, press one of the sounds that you actually want to change. Go into the select menu, making sure multi is selected. Press all three of those. Press the volume button on the master section there. That's going to turn this encoder knob to change the volume. Now we press down, hold, and turn. And so this is going to be changing the volume of all three of those sounds. So you can go ahead and get your levels down as you want. I usually use that select option because I'll be changing all of the sounds in the same category at one time. So all of the lead sounds, all of the bass, and so on. So pretty simple, but I just wanted to remind you of that technique there. That's going to allow you to get the levels as you want. That's always the first part in the mixing sort of workflow. So I did this beforehand and I think everything sounds as good as I want it. And now I'm just going to do a quick effect here. So I have two empty pads and I'm going to show you how to set up a send effect. So it's pretty simple here. Make sure you're on the sound tab, shift and browse to get into the quick effects menu. And I'll be using this sound slot as a sidechain effect send. So I'll go ahead and load up a compressor that's going to turn this pad up here into a send compressor effect. And now on any of these other pads I can send their output to this pad, and that'll be affected by whatever compression settings I have. So the whole point of this is some sidechain compression. So I want group C1 S1, that's going to be my kick drum down here. And so this is going to be making sure whatever I send to this pad is going to be sidechained with my kick drum. So say I want to do this for the pad sounds down here, number 1, 2, 3. All I have to do, let's start with this pad here. I need to change it over to the channel option, and then in the output section, instead of having the audio destination on group, we can go ahead and set it to group, let's see, B or C1, that's my group, sound 16. So I'll do that for all of these sounds. And now those will all be sidechain compressed. So you can hear that sort of pumping in the background. If you want to decrease the noticeability of that effect, go ahead and go back into the plugin menu to change your plugin. On the compressor, just change the amount knob. Or you can also change the gain of the sidechain input. So anyways, that can be used for any effect, maybe a reverb or a regular compressor not using a sidechain input. But if you want to have any of these sounds bus affected, you can go ahead and use one of those send effects. So I have one more option over here. I could use it as maybe a reverb or something like that. But for now, to keep things concise, I'll just leave it empty. So here's how it sounds with that compression added. It's just a little addition to maybe make the sound a little bit more interesting. So I have my effects on the sound level, that's changing all the sounds. I'll also go ahead and throw some effects on the group level as well. Let's keep it simple here. I'll just do some, I like the bus compressor. Let's go over to NI and choose, where's my solid bus comp? I'll load that up. You can go ahead and change the makeup and also the threshold. It's easier to see on the software, so you get an idea of how much gain reduction is actually happening, but you can get this setting to however you want it. And then I'll also go ahead and throw on a limiter to make sure that nothing is clipping. So pretty simple in terms of what I do. I'm not the most versed with effects, but I just need to make sure that the levels are up there and nothing is actually clipping. Okay, that's really, really loud. There we go, that's more reasonable. Okay, so this is all mixed. It sounds good enough to me for the purposes of this tutorial video. And now let's go ahead and talk about actually playing these sounds. So if you see when I'm messing around here, I have basically my hands separated into two parts. My right hand is playing the melodic sounds. And these are all vertically aligned, so all the sounds in any of the columns are going together. So my right hand can play any of these melodic variations. So if I just wanted to play the pad, just playing it with one finger there, or I can add the bass, or I can add all three. So you can go ahead and practice this until you get some independence with the three different sounds. And with some practice, you'll be able to trigger three of those elements at any time that you want. So my right hand is just going between the three different columns, and my left hand down here is all doing the drums. So I have my kick on my third finger here, my hi-hat on the second finger, and then this actually goes ahead and switches. This is my one-handed drumming technique. I'm normally used to going, but if I'm doing a performance kit with lots of melodic sounds, playing the drums with one hand allows me to have one whole hand free to play all of these other different elements. So the left hand is playing the drums. This is going to be something that takes a lot of practice. It took me a long time to get the independence to play drums with one hand. And still I find that once in a while my fingers will be playing together instead of independent, and it'll sound something like this. Something where the hi-hat plays with every other sound. So that just takes some practice, but you can just sit there and play until you get something that works out for you. And I have this clap sound over here, and that is just playing with the snare. So now let's talk about sort of the progression that we can create with this kit. So we have three different melodic sounds, and we can use those to sort of control the development of the performance. So maybe the first section would be just playing the pad and the drums. And then if we wanted to add some elements, we could add the bass. So that's sort of the intermediate section, and then when everything is playing in full, it's going to be playing the synth lead as well. So we have all three of those elements. So by switching between those three different sort of levels of development, you can keep the performance interesting as well as engaging to the listener. I also added this cool little vocal sound. It's actually in the same choke group as my pads, and this is a cool little effect here. I'll show you. So it just sounds like you're cutting off the pad and replacing it with that little vocal sample. So you can go ahead and mess with any of those additional effect samples that you see fit. And that also just keeps the performance interesting, is throwing those effect samples in once in a while. So let's take a little recap here. In this part, we had all of the melodic content. All we did was some final mixing fixes, and we added some effects to sort of bring the group together. And then everything was sounding great, so we went ahead and actually learned how to play it. My technique here is playing two different hands, one focused on the drums and one on the melodic content, but you can go ahead and figure out what works best for you. In all honesty, the only way to get really good at this is just to find a system and keep practicing it. I hope this series has been helpful and maybe shows you some live performance options on the Maschine. This is one of my favorite aspects of this hardware, is actually using it as an instrument rather than just a software controller. So as always, thank you for the support. Make sure to subscribe to ADSR tutorials, check out some of the other free content we have available, and I will see you on the next Maschine tutorial. Thanks for watching.